The film opens with a young girl trapped between walls, with cement pouring down on her from all directions, leaving her buried alive. Fast forward 15 years later, and we meet Sam, a recent college graduate in engineering. During her graduation celebration, her father, who owns a demolition company, presents her with a job supervising the demolition of a remote building. Success in this task could lead to a partnership with her father. Sam's inaugural assignment happens to be the demolition of a massive and distinct architectural structure, an isolated apartment building situated in the middle of nowhere. The edifice is the brainchild of Joseph Malestrazza, an eccentric architect fixated on Egyptian architecture. Samantha arrives at the Malestrazza building, where she's welcomed by Mary, the caretaker, and her solitary son, Jimmy. Samantha informs Mary that she'll be residing in one of the building's apartments. Jimmy assists by carrying her bags to her designated apartment and briefs her on the building's regulations. She's advised to avoid the 8th floor, reserved for Malestrazza, and the rooftop due to its perilous nature. While making her way to her room, Samantha notices a door labeled Julie's. Upon settling in, she promptly takes a bath to freshen up. Later that day, she queries Mary about the current residents of the apartment building, to which Mary reveals that only 4 individuals still reside there. Mary and Jimmy are tasked with overseeing the building until its scheduled demolition day. Despite all other tenants being evicted, 2 residents have adamantly refused to vacate. The following day, Sam gears up to assess the building's structure. Her responsibility entails providing a detailed report on the amount of TNT required for its demolition, including identifying optimal rupture points and selecting the appropriate explosives. A few hours later, she ventures to a nearby mini-market to purchase provisions. Intrigued, she borrows a computer to delve into the apartment building's history. Shockingly, she uncovers a dark past. In 1993, a series of individuals went missing, only to be gruesomely discovered later. 16 victims, men, women, and children, were found sealed within small compartments within the building, subsequently filled with liquid concrete. Among the deceased was the architect himself, Malestrazza. Initially, a construction worker was accused of the murders, but was later exonerated, leaving the crimes unresolved and the perpetrator unidentified. Back at the building, Sam proceeds to mark the optimal rupture points for demolishing the structure. However, her task is abruptly interrupted when a man wielding an axe charges toward her. This man happens to be one of the stubborn tenants who refused to vacate the premises, vehemently opposing the building's destruction. Later that night, Jimmy clandestinely escorts Sam to the forbidden 8th floor. There, he divulges the tragic tale of Malestrazza, the building's architect, who met his demise within its walls. Jimmy leads Sam to a room where Malestrazza's body was discovered, his face nearly unrecognizable due to the encasing cement. It was Mary, Jimmy's mother, who ultimately identified him. Jimmy further reveals that among the 16 victims was a young child named Julie, the same child glimpsed at the outset of the film. She was the child who lived in the room Sam had seen earlier. Additionally, Jimmy informs her that his father was another victim. He then shows her the wall where his father was discovered. The lights flicker and go out, causing Sam to panic in the darkness and accidentally cut her leg. Afterward, Jimmy tends to her wound and begins to touch her thigh. It becomes clear that Jimmy is attracted to her, and he attempts to make a move, but she tells him to stop. Later that evening, while Sam is looking in the mirror, she notices the glass behind her violently shaking. She lifts the mirror and sees blood oozing from a hole. Suddenly, Sam is yanked into the wall and awakens to find herself trapped inside. Cement begins to pour down from all sides, leaving her with nowhere to escape. She screams as she wakes up, realizing it was all just a nightmare. Unable to sleep, she roams around her apartment. Suddenly, something startles her, but it turns out to be her boyfriend, Peter, surprising her. Sam takes Peter on a tour of the apartment. They surreptitiously ascend to the 8th floor. During their exploration of this level, Sam and her partner stumble upon a concealed passageway. Intrigued, Sam ventures down the passage and uncovers a hidden chamber. This clandestine room offers a vantage point to observe any of the apartments without detection. To her dismay, Sam realizes that Jimmy has been clandestinely spying on her, particularly during her moments of privacy like bathing. She confides in Mary about the unsettling discovery, prompting Jimmy, feeling ashamed, to retreat. Later that evening, Peter suggests to Sam that she should depart the following day, a proposition she ultimately concurs with. As Peter and Sam share their final moments together that night, Jimmy finds himself consumed by jealousy. The next day, Sam packs her belongings in preparation to vacate the premises. Simultaneously, she compiles a report detailing the requisite amount of TNT necessary to demolish the building. Before parting ways, Jimmy extends a heartfelt apology to Sam for his voyeuristic behavior. In a gesture of contrition, he presents Sam with a gift, a copy of Malestrazza's journal, the architect of the building. Perusing the journal, Sam discerns that there must be a significant, open expanse at the building's core. Jimmy ascends to the roof in search of an entrance to the concealed space, yet he fails to return. Concerned, Sam and her boyfriend embark on a quest to locate him. Their search leads them to the discovery of a colossal shaft at the building's center, from which they hear Jimmy's cries for help, indicating that he's injured. Sam, displaying courage, requests her boyfriend to lower her into the shaft on a rope. Initially, the descent progresses smoothly, but abruptly, tragedy strikes as Peter is fatally wounded by an assailant wielding sharp iron. Sam, witnessing her beloved bleed out before her eyes, is left in a state of shock. Subsequently, she plummets to the shaft's base, where she regains consciousness. However, she finds herself not alone. A mysterious figure stands before her, none other than Malestrazza, the presumed deceased architect who she had believed to be entombed within the walls. Astonishingly, he has been confined in the shaft all this time, clutching a radio. In the radio recording, Jimmy's voice can be heard pleading for help, indicating that the voice Sam heard earlier was actually a pre-recorded message by Jimmy himself. Shortly afterward, Jimmy sends her a letter from above, stating that he will keep her imprisoned until she learns to love him. He then mails Sam's demolition report to her father and sabotages her car by sinking it into a lake. All of these actions are orchestrated to make it seem like Sam hasn't returned home because she's gone on vacation with her boyfriend. Meanwhile, back in the shaft, Malestrazza shocks her with a revelation. He confesses to being the mastermind behind the murders of 16 people whose bodies were found entombed within the walls. Malestrazza believes that the longevity of ancient Egyptian monuments stems from rituals conducted during construction, which involved burying living victims within the walls. In his twisted attempt to replicate this, he buried people alive within the walls of his own buildings. Adding to the horror, Malestrazza discloses that one of the victims was Mary's husband. In an act of vengeance, Mary decides to imprison Malestrazza in the shaft indefinitely, ensuring he suffers the same fate as his victims. Mary also deceived everyone by falsely identifying another victim's body as Malestrazza's. This lie was widely believed, leading everyone to think that Malestrazza had perished, allowing Mary to keep him as her own prisoner. After this startling revelation, Jimmy returns to the hole and sends down a cassette tape. Malestrazza plays the tape, in which Jimmy demands to see Sam and Malestrazza dance. Malestrazza explains to Sam that they must obey Jimmy's orders, as he can be kind but also exceedingly cruel and imaginative if disobeyed. Reluctantly, Sam agrees to dance, but when Jimmy commands them to kiss, she refuses. Malestrazza, however, forces her into a kiss against her will. After a brief moment, Jimmy interrupts and warns Malestrazza not to touch Sam again. As a reward for their compliance, Jimmy sends down a basket filled with food, water, and a two-way radio, instructing Sam to keep the radio close for communication. Later that night, Mary arrives on the roof, where Sam immediately calls out for her help. Mary is shocked to find Sam trapped in the hole with Malestrazza. Angered, Mary confronts Jimmy, reminding him that the place was intended for the architect alone, and threatens to report the incident to the police unless Sam remains in the hole with Malestrazza. She fears that if the truth is revealed, she'll be implicated and Jimmy will be left orphaned. Meanwhile, in the afternoon, Sam's father and his demolition team, having received Sam's report, arrive at the apartment and begin setting up explosives. Elsewhere, Sam remains stuck in the hole with Malestrazza, their fate hanging in the balance. Sam continues her attempts to seduce Jimmy, desperately hoping he'll set her free and rescue her from the impending explosion. However, her efforts prove futile. Witnessing her futile attempts, Malestrazza advises her to conserve her energy. Taking matters into his own hands, Malestrazza prepares a grave equipped with multiple pipes connected to a cement tank, believing that by burying an additional person alive, the building won't collapse when the demolition team triggers the explosion. Determined to sacrifice himself to safeguard the building, he implores Sam to end his life. Eventually, after some provocation, she complies, and he expresses gratitude as he descends into his makeshift grave, which quickly fills with cement. Meanwhile, outside the building, Mary consoles Jimmy while they set up and initiate the explosives. As the countdown commences, Jimmy experiences a change of heart. He frantically calls out Sam's name and dashes towards the building. Sam's father intervenes, urging them to halt the countdown. Sam is then rescued from the pit and rushed into an awaiting ambulance. Meanwhile, Mary finds herself under arrest for her involvement in Malestrazza's kidnapping. In the film's conclusion, Sam reflects in narration that Malestrazza erected 27 buildings, all of which still stand. This particular apartment complex was his magnum opus. He adamantly opposed its demolition and even sacrificed himself to preserve it. As a tribute to his legacy and out of respect for his wishes, the building will not face destruction, remaining as a testament to his vision. And with that, the movie draws to a close. Subscribe for more content like this, enable notifications, and show your support with a like to help the channel thrive. Thank you for tuning in.